Chapter 9 asks us to look at the capital structure of a company. Company XYZ has the following capital structure. Their optimal capital structure consists of 25% debt, 15% preferred stock, and 60% common stock. Their tax rate is 40%. We expect earnings and dividends to grow at a constant rate of 6%. They just paid a dividend of $3.70, and the stock currently sells for $60 per share. 10-year Treasury bonds, remember our measure for risk-free, is 6%. The market risk premium is 5%, and beta is 1.3. They're asking us to calculate weighted average cost of capital. Remember that weighted average cost of capital is equal to the weight in debt times the cost of debt times 1 minus the tax rate plus the weight in preferred stock times the cost of preferred stock plus the weight in common stock times the cost of common stock. So we can enter in what we know already just from the problem. We know that this company has an optimal capital structure consisting of 25% debt, we don't know the cost of debt yet. We also know the tax rate is 40%. They have an optimal weight in preferred stock of 15%. We don't know the cost of preferred stock yet. And the optimal weight in common stock is 60%. And we don't know the cost of common stock yet. So we know what we need to calculate. We need to calculate the cost of debt, the cost of preferred stock, and the cost of common stock. So the information says that preferred stock could be sold to the public at a price of $100 per share. Preferred stock will have a constant dividend of $9, and flotation costs of $5 per share will be incurred. So we can calculate the cost of preferred stock. The cost of preferred stock is equal to the preferred stock dividend divided by the price times 1 minus flotation costs in percentage form. So the dividend is $9, and we divide that by the price of 100 times 1 minus 5% flotation. If the flotation costs had been given to you, we used 5% because $5 is 5% of the price. Or you could simply say minus flotations in dollar terms of $5. Either one of these are accurate. So we have $9 divided by $95. And that gives us 9.5%, rounded of course. So we can put this in. The cost of preferred stock is 9.5%. The problem says that debt can be sold at an interest rate of 9%, so it gives you the debt cost without having to do any calculations. And so now we can calculate the cost of common stock. We can use the capital asset pricing model to do this, where the cost of the common stock would be equal to the risk-free rate plus beta times the market risk premium, which is the market return minus the risk-free rate. So the risk-free rate plus beta times the market risk premium. It's also written MRP sometimes, market risk premium. So the risk-free rate is given to you in the problem. It says that the risk-free rate, the same as the Treasury bond yield, is 6%. Our beta is 1.3, And this problem gives us the market risk premium of 5%. So we can work this out. 1.3 times 5% plus 6% gives us 12.5%. So the cost of common stock is 12.5%. You could also calculate the common stock cost using the discounted cash flow method. Where the cost of common stock is equal to the next dividend payable divided by the price, the dividend yield, plus the capital gains yield, the growth rate. So the next dividend payable, we would have to calculate. The problem said the last dividend paid was $3.70. So D1 would be $3.70 times 1 plus the growth rate. And the growth rate is 6%. So 1 plus 6%. And that gives you 3.922. So our next dividend payable is 3.922. We divide that by the current price of $60. And we add to that the growth rate of 6%. And you get 12.5% again. So it doesn't matter which method you use, you get the same result. But now that we have all of the components for calculating the weighted average cost of capital, we can work this out. So we have our 9% times 1 minus 40%, so times 60%, times the 25% weight, gives us 1.35%. Then we have our 15% times 9.5% to give us 1.425. Plus 60% times 12.5% gives us 7.5%. So now we can add all of these up. And now the 1.35%. Sorry, I messed that up. 0.0135 plus 0.01425 plus 0.075. And my calculator keeps having sticky buttons and not working. But if you add all of those up, you get 10.275%. So the weighted average cost of capital for company XYZ is 10.275%. So number 2 asks, on January 1st, the market value of ABC was $60 million. During the year, the company plans to raise and invest $30 million into new projects. The current capital structure is optimal and consists of $30 million in debt, $30 million in equity, for a total value of $60 million. New bonds have an 8% coupon rate and will be sold at par. Common stock is currently selling for $30 per share. The required return is 12%. The dividend yield is 4% and the growth rate is 8%. So we expect the next dividend to be $1.20, and the tax rate is 40%. If the company wants to maintain the present capital structure, how much of the new investment must be financed with common stock equity? So currently, right now, the target capital structure, the optimal capital structure for this company, consists of $30 million of their $60 million being invested in debt. That's 50%. And $30 million of their $60 million being invested in equity. So that's also 50%. 50% is in debt and 50% is in equity. So they need to continue this to maintain their current optimal structure. So they want to have 50% in equity, and they're going to raise and invest $30 million. So $15 million of this needs to be financed with equity. So assuming there is sufficient cash flow for the company to maintain its target capital structure, what is its weighted average cost of capital? So remember, weighted average cost of capital is equal to the weight in debt times the cost of debt times 1 minus the tax rate, plus the weight in preferred stock times the cost of preferred stock, plus the weight in common stock times the cost of common stock. So here we know that their optimal capital structure consists of 50% debt and 50% equity. And their tax rate is 40%. So we need to calculate the cost of debt times 1 minus 40%. They have no preferred stock in their capital structure. So the weight in common stock then, well, here we'll say 0, plus the weight in common stock is 50% times the cost of common stock, which we need to calculate. So first we're given the coupon rate on a bond that will be sold at par is 8%. And you remember that the yield on a par bond is also 8%. So I can even prove this to you. So we have a bond. The coupon rate is 8%. So that means that the payment is 8% times 1,000. So that's $80. The future value is the par value of 1,000. The bond is trading at par, so that's 1,000. And it doesn't matter what it is. We can set it equal to anything. So n is equal to 5. Again, you could just look at the problem and see that because this bond is selling at par, and the coupon rate is 8%, and so the yield is also 8%. But we can calculate the interest rate on this. N is 5. The present value is 1,000. It's trading at par. The payment is 80. And the future value is 1,000. So we compute the interest rate. Oh, sorry. The present value would be a negative 1,000. That's how much it would cost today. And we compute the interest rate. That's 8%. So we have 8% for the cost of debt. So now we need to calculate the cost of common stock equity. And you're also given that in the problem. So the required return is also 12%. So now you can calculate this. You have each of the components. So 50% times the 8% times 1 minus the tax rate of 40% is 60%. So that's 2.4 plus 50% times 12% is 6%. So that gives us a weighted average cost of capital of 8.4%. Now again, your exam is multiple choice, so there's not going to be asking you to come up with this entire worksheet on your own. I may ask you just a simple component of it, or I may give you the capital structure, the optimal capital structure, as well as the costs, and ask you to come up with a weighted average cost of capital. Your quiz will be more representative of exam questions.